This show is brought to you by countless hours and long days spent hustling in real estate.
Live from beautiful Los Angeles, California, a million ways to get in.
Holding a professional record of 444 wins and no losses. Standing 10 feet tall and heavy in the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the reigning, defending, undisputed champion of real estate entertainment, a million ways to get in.
Tell him, Bruce. Tell him. Make sure they know. Hello, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in to the most interesting show in real estate. Since we've last spoken, I have been really busy, actually. I'm glad I got a chance to sit down and kind of slow it down for a second and get on the podcast. I got a few deals going. One of my listings is now in escrow. Got full asking for it. The one on Foss Street, if you guys have been following on social media. Also, I got another acquisition in the pipeline. It's a cash offer from a distressed seller. So on those, you never know till it's over and escrow closes and you get the keys. But we opened escrow on that. So yeah, I got a couple new transactions going this week. Also, I mentioned I have that car that I picked up. I got that to the shop. My mechanic's working on it, and he's going to be bringing back a list of items to be done and when they need to be done. I guess socially, other than that, Trump has been signing into office all kinds of executive orders, and that has my social media on all fronts going absolutely bananas on both sides. And I like it. I enjoy the banter back and forth. So yeah, that's what I gather from all that. I have no opinion on it except that I enjoy it. I like watching both sides. I have friends on both sides of the spectrum. Heavy left, heavy right, heavy red, heavy blue, however you want to say it. So I like watching all that banter go back and forth. Last show, we had my buddy Erik DeArkland on. He is basically a real estate extraordinaire. He's done it all in real estate over the last decade. It was great to sit down with him and hear about his journey from college apartment researching trustee sales to rehabbing, building, and managing residential and commercial real estate, all while being able to keep his circle small and making sure that his family is fed first and taken care of. I think the biggest takeaway from the show with Erik is the way he has been able to adapt, and I think that has been a big factor in his success. He has had to adapt to market changes, business model changes, and a myriad of other changes, but he's stuck in there and engineered a pretty awesome life for himself. If I missed any questions or you have any questions for Erik that I didn't ask, go ahead and send us an email, info@millionwayspodcast.com, or drop us a comment on Instagram. This week's Titan tool is called PODIO. I'm not sure what to call it, but it falls somewhere between task manager, team manager, and customizable CRM with automations built in. It allows a user to create custom apps within a user space for very specific actions that may take place in any given business workflow. You can sign up online for free to see if the interface is something you like and that can benefit your business. If you enjoy it, you can tack on extra fees from there depending on what apps you use and how robust you make your interface. To see me using the program, follow us on social media and check out our YouTube channel, where I'll post videos of me using the tool live. Don't forget about the awesome giveaway that we've got going on. We're 4 weeks into a 5-week giveaway that is giving away a USB PV mixer and an Audio-Technica microphone. The reason I'm doing this is because I love producing content and I want to give one of you guys the opportunity to do the same. To enter this contest, it's super easy. All you've got to do is give us a positive review on iTunes and also be following us on Instagram and Snapchat. If you need help with this, make sure that you visit our website, millionwayspodcast.com, and fill out the pop-up that appears. From there, you'll get an email that will walk you through the process to make sure you're getting a fair entry at the contest. Even if you don't want the mixer, be sure to give us positive feedback on whatever outlet you're listening to us. Not only does it allow more people to hear of us, on that note, be sure to give us some feedback on whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's good or bad. Not only does it give other listeners an idea what the show is about, it also helps boost our search engine rankings on the respective platform. We don't spend a ton of time on social media, but when we're there, we're normally on Instagram or Snapchat. So if you want to interact with us, those are the best places. However, we do have other social media. So if you want to talk to us, reach out to us on your favorite social media platform and we'll meet you there. Our website is updated weekly with a ton of new content, and that is the best place to find new episodes, episode segments, and exclusive video subscription and interviews. For anything and everything else, you can always send an email to info@millionwayspodcast.com. After the interview, stick around for a weekly featured realtor and the title tip of the week by our very own Jerry Wu. This week's guest is former USC and NFL safety Marshall Jones. Marshall Jones, as I said, used to play football. Very serious high school football player, and then went on to USC, where he was a starter on the defense and bounced around in the NFL for a season before getting into real estate. He started off selling residential real estate in the San Fernando Valley, but has recently made the transition to tenant and owner representation in a neighborhood just south of downtown Los Angeles called West Adams. I chose Marshall to be a guest on the show and share his path to real estate success because he is a prime example of the drive it takes to be successful in sports manifesting itself in every aspect of his life. I also chose to bring Marshall on the show because personally, I know he is a very hard worker while maintaining a very laid-back attitude, all while having some good information to deliver to you listeners. On that note, let's go ahead and jump right into my little chat with Marshall. How you doing today, Marshall?
Good, Ryan. Doing real good. Thanks for having me and everything.
Of course, man. Of course. Thanks for taking the time out of your day and coming on the show. So you're from LA, right? You're an LA guy.
So I'm an LA guy, North Los Angeles. I did most of my adolescence years there. I'm from Chicago, but most of my life's in California. And I do real estate now. It's going pretty well. No complaints.
Cool, man. And obviously pretty good athlete, as I had mentioned. Marshall and I are ex-teammates. We met when we played together at USC. Before that, Marshall was quite the prep star. I think he was probably one of the highest recruited safeties out of his class, or athletes. I'm not sure if it was both sides of the ball or what. Why don't you tell the listeners where you went to high school, a little bit about that, and then how you got into SC?
Yeah, I went to Oaks Christian High School. It's in Westlake Village, California. And it's a smaller private school. And, at the time I was there, it's only been open for about 4 or 5 years. And, my class at Oaks, we had about 12 guys go to Division I. And, I was pretty heavily recruited. But SC was at the number one of my list. So I got an offer from them and I ended up there. And that's where I met you, Ryan. And, Mark Tyler was on my high school team too, and he played football for us at SC as well. So,
right.
That's kind of how I got to USC. And, from there, I was there for 5 years. I played for a couple of years there, but, I didn't have the most successful college career, but I remember I hurt my neck, but after that I bounced back and I was fine and graduated on time. And, here I am now, 5 years out, doing pretty well for myself, so...
Cool, man. No need to downplay it. You 2-year starter or a year plus and a few interceptions, big plays. He won't tell you, but I will. So don't you guys worry. Do you have was it a twin brother or was he a year younger? I know you guys were pretty close in age.
I had a younger brother who was 3 years younger than me.
Okay.
And he went to UCLA.
Ooh.
And we actually played. I actually played him twice and I tackled him 3 times.
Cool. So you guys got to play on the same team in high school, or were you guys on separate teams in high school?
Yeah, his freshman year was my senior year, and he was on varsity as a freshman, so we got to play together.
Cool, man. Is that your only sibling? Just one brother?
I got another brother who's in college still. He goes to the University of Missouri, and I have a sister who she is 24 years old, and she's living back home still, so. Yeah, it's 4 of us in the family.
Cool, man. Cool. So let's talk about after SC. So football's done. You, like me, played a little bit afterwards, kind of bounced around, stayed in shape. But did you pretty immediately get into real estate after football was over?
So, after football was over, I didn't really know what to do. So I coached at my high school for about a year. And, I had a college professor who I stayed in contact with after I graduated, and he told me to get my license. And, so I told him I wanted a career in real estate. So I got my license. I still didn't really know what to do. But I came across this firm out in Westlake where I lived. It was a residential company, and I got with them, and I was lucky. Right away, I was fortunate enough to have a family friend who was selling their house, so I got that started. I did that. It was my first deal. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had a senior who was helping me, so it doesn't always work out that way. It's tough getting started, whether it's residential or commercial. People got to trust you. When someone sells their house, that's pretty much the biggest asset they have, so they got to trust you with that.
Not to mention houses aren't cheap where we're from. So.
No, exactly. So, I think the average house where I was living out there at the time was about, almost $1 million. So
right.
That's a pretty hefty investment,
So a professor helped you kind of make the segue into real estate. Was that a USC professor?
Yeah. His name was Ryan Millchap. I don't know if you had him.
I did not, but
I'm
going to do some research on him.
Yeah. He owns his own company. I think it's called Arenda Capital.
Cool, man. So you got into residential real estate. Luckily, you had you said it was a family friend or a neighbor who afforded you the opportunity to get a deal going right away.
Yeah, so that happened. I did that. Another year and a half went by. I did a few more deals. But the thing with residential, there's a lot of personal, emotion involved when it comes to selling someone's house. The sellers, they want the right people to buy their house. So, there's a lot of emotion in that. And then buyers, they have to love it, So, after I think it was about almost 2 years, I made the switch over to commercial real estate, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm selling apartment buildings in the Baldwin Hills and, West Adams area, close to USC. So, the reason I did that was because, commercial real estate, I feel it's more business oriented compared to, emotional oriented when it comes to selling a building or something, because right now I work for a lot of investors, and, if the deal makes sense, they'll go for it. It doesn't matter what the building looks like or who owns it, so, it's more business oriented. So, that's why I liked it, and that's why I made the switch. So,
So you switched from residential to commercial, and not only did you do that, you switched areas. You switched from North Los Angeles out to basically West Central Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Cool, man. That area is really, really happening as far as residential goes and house flipping. It's hard to get your hands on something out there, and if you do, you're lucky and you're going to be profitable. So sounds like the same is kind of going on with commercial.
Yeah. The areas I'm working, Baldwin Hills, West Adams area, there's a lot of, transactions going on. They want to buy in those areas because they know, there's a lot of people that live in that area, and, people are always going to need someplace to live. So, apartment, investments it's going pretty well in that area. So.
Yeah, definitely. So multifamily, 4 units and up, 5, 6, or bigger than that?
5 units and up, 5 units and up. I don't go too big, but, about 5 to 12 is my range. So
cool, man.
That's where I'm at, yeah.
You seeing anything like double-digit returns as far as cap rates, or not even close to that?
Not close to double digits. Probably, in the 3s to 6s. You might find, they're safe. They're all safe deals. You might find a few that are double-digit cap rates, but you don't come across those too often. But
aside from the cap rate, like we were saying, the appreciation in the area is going pretty crazy. So
yeah, it's going up. I'm trying to do some in Inglewood as well, but everything in Inglewood is overpriced right now with the new stadium coming in and everything. But that's still a highly desirable area.
I know. Man, that stadium's going to shake some stuff up. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope it goes well, but I think it will. But prices right now are just high in that area, or people are just holding on because they're not sure what to do. So
when you switched from residential to commercial, did you obviously also switch brokers, right?
Yeah, I switched my broker, and that's essentially about it.
Cool, man. Who are you with now?
Marcus Millichap. It's the biggest investment real estate company in the country. So.
Cool. Where can we find you? Is there find you on Facebook? Is that the best place to find you?
You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I have a Facebook for my old company, but I don't have a Facebook for my new company. But my new company, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me there.
Cool. And I'll be sure to include your business email in the show notes. So if anyone's interested in that multifamily in the West LA area, West Adams area, go ahead and reach out to Marshall. Are you part of like a team or are you working solo?
So I am part of a team. My senior agent, his name is Lane Schwartz, and he's been with the company for 26 years now. I'm on my own, but me and him, if I have any questions or anything, I go through him. If I have a meeting and I want someone else to join me, he'll come as well. So I mean, it's me, and then there's two other guys on the team. So we're all throughout LA. So I mean, yeah, we all answer each other's questions.
So you're on a team of 4 guys, three agents, and then a senior agent.
Yes.
Cool, man. And you guys all kind of do your own thing, or do you each have an individual job that you are, say, an expert at that, you do most
all
of the time?
Us, we're all in apartment investments. Lane, our senior, he does apartments and a little bit of retail. So, if we come across someone who needs retail, advice, we go to Lane. But all of us, we all do, apartment buildings.
Cool, man. So what changed as far as when you made the switch from residential to commercial? What changed in getting the leads? Because like you, I did some residential real estate retail for a while, and it is really hard to create rapport with a neighborhood. And if you don't know somebody who's willing to trust you and let you sell their home, it's hard. Yeah. So I get you there. So tell me a little bit about leads in the commercial side and how you get those leads and yeah.
So for the commercial side, essentially it's all cold calls. I come in at 7:00 in the morning. I don't leave until about 6:37 at night. And my goal is to make about, 65 to 80 cold calls a day and about 300 a week. So, all you got to do is really, build rapport over the phone and you get yourself in front of them. Mm-hmm. And then, that's how you get your leads. I mean, before I started calling, I databased for about 3 months. I got about, close to 3,000 contacts in my database. And then, about a month and a half or about 2 months ago, I just started cold calling. So, that's how I get my leads is cold calls.
Cool, man. And so do you have a process to help you follow up with those leads after you've made initial contact, like some sort of CRM or something?
Yeah, I have a CRM. I use Salesforce, and then, I have Excel sheets as well. So, I make notes of each, phone call I have, and, I make notes to call him back in 6 months, or if this guy's a buyer, I put him on my buyer list, and, I go from there.
Cool, man. So pretty standard, just Salesforce CRM, reminding yourself to follow up and constant touches until business is ready to be produced.
You get that first meeting with them, you meet them face to face, and then, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Is there like a lot of whining and dining and taking them out or any of that, or not so much of that?
Not necessarily, not so much. It's just, it's just getting in front of them, being face to face, and then, building that rapport with them. So
cool, man. So obviously residential real estate's pretty straightforward if you're using an RPA, a California RPA. There is intricacies if you're investing and things that you want to include and things like that. But tell me a little bit about the difference of commercial contracts and residential contracts and maybe different sort of deals that you make or offers that you put in.
Yeah, I mean, the deals, essentially, they use the same paperwork almost. You can use car forms. You got to use separate, purchase agreements because, on the car for residential, you can, I think, what is it? It's 1 to 4 units, 4 dwellings, So if you go over that, you got to use separate, purchase agreements. You got to use a multifamily purchasing agreement. That's really the only difference. And then, each deal is different, People are selling their deals, people are doing exchanges. I mean, it all depends on, what's happening in the deal and, what the seller's doing, what the buyer wants. I mean,
is there ever times where say a seller is distressed and he needs to get rid of that thing ASAP and, there's a certain type of buyer for that, just like a, residential house?
So, I mean, it's the same thing with residential. You have distressed buyers, you have people who buy properties and, do rehabilitation to them, So, I mean, just a matter of fact of knowing who does that. And, those guys are not going to, buy something that's, market value. They're going to want to buy something that's, below market value, put money into it and, renovate it. So.
Cool, man. Well, let's move into pro tips or things that you would wish you knew when you got into the industry, because, it's been a while since you've been in the industry. Now you've done a couple of different things in the industry. So what are some things that you would wish you had known getting into it?
So before getting into the real estate, I probably would have wished I saved more money or had more money saved up, because, when you're in real estate, it's not a 9-to-5 job. And I'm sure you know that. You're not necessarily on salary. At the end of the day, if you get a deal done, it pays off because you make a lot of money off the deal. And if you can continue making deals, you're gonna make a lot of money. The sky's the limit for how much money you can make. But starting off, I didn't really have any money saved up, but I was fortunate enough to be staying with my parents at the time, and I had a good support system. My dad said he'd help me out until I finally got things going. So just knowing.
Having that financial bridge that can get you from working until you get a deal to scoring that first deal and cashing your check.
Exactly. Yeah. I was not expecting that, or I didn't know what to expect. So, if I knew that, the process would have been easier, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm with you there. I was prepped for it. My dad told me, he's like, man, you better save up and create yourself some sort of financial bridge, because it might be dry out there for a while for you when you get started.
Yeah.
And I underestimated that big time.
I think everyone does at first. You don't know. So, we were younger kids coming out of college. We didn't really know. So,
Right. And there's some non-millennials listening to this going, oh, well, you should have known. They taught you that.
Yeah, no one taught us that.
Yeah. So tell me what you think is going to happen with the real estate market here in LA or in California for the next, 3 years or so.
So, right now, especially, commercial market, we're at the peak of the market. It's going pretty nice. I don't see it getting any better. It might go down a little bit. Interest rates are still pretty low, so money's easy to borrow right now. Essentially, it's a seller's market. Property values are still high. It might drop in the next year with the new election. No one really knows. That's what a lot of people's objection is right now, is that, we have the election and I don't know what's going to happen. So, typically with the election, those policies that the new president will put in, they won't affect any value for about another year or so. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It might go down, but right now we're definitely at the peak of the market, so It's a good time. It's a good time to sell. And if you're looking to buy, interest rates are low. Property value is still high because, those things correlate. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And your plan to answer it is keep on that CRM, those 3,000 leads you have, letting them know.
Letting them know. So, that's my pitch is, interest rates are low, property value is high, it's a seller's market. So, if you're looking to buy, it's easy to borrow money now. So, and interest rates are probably going to go up. They're steadily going up as we speak. So, right now you can get your interest rate could be about, 3.5 maybe right now. So
cool. And you can help anybody who calls you with that, right? You can help get them linked up with the lender and stuff.
We've got, my company's got an in-house lender, Marcus Millchap, corporate, Marcus Millchap, corporate finances. So, we do loans as well. So, I can put them in touch for mortgage lender and everything. So
cool, man. And just real quick, a 3-year personal goal or where you see yourself in 3 years in the industry or out of the industry or made your money and skipped out or what?
No, the next 2 years, I see myself, I'm going to buy some apartment buildings myself. I'm going to buy, maybe a few before I buy myself, my own house, So, that's how I'm going to look to build long-term wealth is just, start investing in apartment buildings. People are always going to need a place to stay. So, apartment buildings, it's a pretty good investment. So, that's where I see myself, start as soon as I can investing in apartment buildings and then, I'll go from there.
Cool, man. And go ahead and remind everybody one more time if they do want to invest in apartment buildings in West LA where they can reach you. And
So my name, Marshall Jones. I work with Marcus Millichap. You can reach me on my office line 310-909-5453, and my email address is Marshall MARSHALL .Jones JONES at marcusmillichap.com MARCUSMILLICHAP.com. Yeah, and that's it.
Marshall, ex-football player, current real estate stud, thank you so much for joining us, brother. Great catching up with you.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it, man. It's good to hear from you.
Cool, Marshall. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right.
Take it easy. Thank you for listening to another episode of A Million Ways to Get It. For questions, comments, or guest information, send an email to info@millionwayspodcast.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @realestatepodcast. This week's Realtor of the Week is Patrick Crane. Patrick is a realtor in Northeast Los Angeles, and he and I have known each other for about a year now. I picked Patrick to be this week's featured realtor because Patrick is bold, straight up. He took the leap to start doing business in Northeast LA before most other people had even thought about doing business there. Safe to say he was way ahead of the curve on that one. I also really admire Patrick's creativity. He and I have viewed a handful of properties together over the year, and every time we do, he brings me to a property with a lot of potential and a plan in mind that involves some creativity, with the end goal being the most value for me, his client at that time. And for that reason, Patrick is our Realtor of the Week. You can reach him on Facebook. Just give him a search, Patrick Crane, last name Crane. He operates under California Republic Realty. Go ahead and check him out online. Let's jump into our weekly title tip with Jerry.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Title Talk Tuesday. This is your host, Jerry Wu, your title specialist here at First American Title. And I wanted to welcome you guys back to another installation of this special program talking specifically about title insurance related to real estate, residential, commercial, and so forth. Today, the topic that I wanted to share with you guys has to do with vesting. Now, if you've ever bought a property, maybe you bought it by yourself, maybe you had somebody else on title with you, escrow would always give you what's called a vesting worksheet. And what that really is, vesting, it's another fancy way of saying estate planning. Okay, so before I continue on this topic, I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer. You know, when we're talking about vesting, estate planning, there's really a lot of legal and tax ramification that comes from this. So again, your realtor or your title specialist, we're not attorneys. We don't give legal advice. However, I do think it's important that the buyer of any real estate transaction has a good enough idea or general idea the different ways of holding title, meaning the different ways of how they should vest their title or vest their property. And I'll go into more details and explanation later of the differences, but I at least wanted to start out this segment with that little disclaimer because it is important. I mean, we have attorneys, estate planning attorneys that really specialize in nothing but this type of stuff. So it does get pretty detailed. It does get pretty extensive. So with that said, let me continue and talk a little bit about how you can hold title when you purchase a property. Now, if you're purchasing property by yourself, if you're the only one that's going to be on title, well, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty simple. Okay, so the first scenario is you're a single man or a single woman. Now, that's the most easiest, the most straightforward way. Let's say your name is John Doe, then you're buying property. The title of your property is going to read John Doe, a single man. That's it. The title of your property, if you look at the actual grant deed of your property, is just going to say John Doe, a single man. So another way of holding title by yourself is John Doe, an unmarried man. Okay, now the only difference is an unmarried man is somebody that's been legally divorced. So the joke is if you've been married, you're never single again. And the third way is John Doe, a married man, as his sole and separate property. So obviously, in this method, John Doe is married, but he's only holding title by himself. His wife is not on title with him. So if that were the case, if he wants to hold title as John Doe, a married man, as his sole and separate property, his wife, Jane Doe, for example, would need to sign a quitclaim deed deeding her interest off. So again, if John Doe wants to hold title by himself as a married man, his wife would need to deed her interest off. Now, there are some rare occasions where a married man or a married woman can hold title by themselves without their spouse signing a quitclaim or interspousal grant deed. However, when that property comes time to sell, if the title company did not see a interspousal deed from the spouse, they're going to require one at the time of sale. So, you may be able to buy a property without your spouse signing you may be able to buy a property by yourself as a married person without your spouse signing a quitclaim deed under certain scenarios. However, sooner or later, your spouse is going to be required to sign a quitclaim deed. So those are, if you're holding title by yourself, those are the most simplistic three methods. Now, keep in mind, when you hold title by yourself, we're talking about, remember, estate planning, investing. What happens to the property after you pass away? If you're holding title by yourself as John Doe, a single man, and you were to pass away, that property is going into probate. So just something to keep in mind, okay? Now, another way of holding title is under your trust. So segueing into that, a trust is a great way of holding title. I mean, because you basically have everything lined up in a scenario where you're unable to act as the seller or maybe the trustee. Now, keep in mind, every trust, there's 3 roles, okay? So you may have a trust called John Doe Family Trust. Okay, you went to an attorney and you created a trust called John Doe Family Trust, and you want to buy your house using John Doe Family Trust. That's absolutely okay. Now, in every trust, there are essentially 3 roles. You have your trustor, basically a person who created the trust. You have your beneficiary, which is pretty self-explanatory. And you have your trustee, meaning the person in charge of this trust. A lot of the times, the trustee and trustor could be the same person. And the trustee is also the same person that would sign all the documents relating to a real estate sale if the property is under a trust. From a title company perspective, whenever we see a property held under a trust and it's going to sale, we're going to see who the trustee is, because that's the person that we're going to require to sign all the relevant documents. If this particular trustee has passed away, for example, let's say our original trustee was our John Doe, right? It was a John Doe trustee of the John Doe Family Trust. And in this example, let's say our trustee, John Doe, has passed away. Then the title company is going to require to see a copy of the John Doe Family Trust to see who is the successor trustee, and then if that successor trustee can't act, then there'll probably be a successor to the successor trustee. So in a way, a trust is a very good way of holding title because it kind of lays out everything. There's no questions to go with that. Now, also keep in mind, sometimes I get a question like, "Hey, I have my property in a trust, but I want to sell it and I want to use a power of attorney." In general, most of the time, if your property is held under a trust, the trust does not allow a power of attorney to be used unless it is specified in the trust that a power of attorney can be used, which is very rare. So just something to keep in mind, because if you think about it, the power of attorney sort of defeats the purpose of a trust, right? So just something to be aware of. So that's another way of holding title, of course, is you can hold it under your company name. Perhaps you have an LLC or you have a corporation. That's also possible. Okay, moving on. Now, co-ownership. What if you're buying property and you want to hold title under 2 or more people? Well, I've included a little workshop. Hopefully you can see it, but there is generally now 4 ways of vesting. So let's say we have John Doe and Jane Smith buying the property together. Okay, John Doe and Jane Smith is buying property together, and escrow is going to ask them, how do you want to hold title? How do you want to vest? How do you want your vesting to be? There are 4 options. First is called tenancy in common, then joint tenancy, and community property, and community property of right or survivorship. So it might sound something like this. John Doe, a single man, and Jane Smith, a single woman, together as joint tenants. A title might be held in that fashion. Or it may be John Doe and Jane Doe, husband and wife, together as community property with right or survivorship. Could be held in that fashion. Now, the worksheet that I've supplied kind of goes over the main differences between these 4 options, but I'll give you a quick overview on some of the key things that at least most people in my experience pay attention to when they decide between or amongst these 4 options. Now, let's say 2 people are buying title and they say they want to hold title under different interests. For example, party A says, I want to have 70% interest, and party B says, I want to have 30% interest. Well, that's a pretty simple one because it kind of just defaults to tenancy in common, because tenancy in common is the only choice out of these 4 that allows different interests to be held by the parties involved. However, tenancy in common also does not have any right or survivorship benefits. And what I mean by that is, let's say party A has 70% interest. If party A were to pass away, party A's 70% would need to be probated. Again, if party A were to pass away, his 70% or his or her 70% would need to go to probate. It does not just automatically go to party B. Now, moving on then to joint tenant. Okay, so party A and B wants to hold title together as joint tenants. Now, joint tenants does have an automatic right of survivorship benefit. However, you have to hold title as a whole, meaning you cannot anymore have 70%, 30%. It has to be 2 people have to be held title. 2 people have to hold title as a whole. It could be 3 people, 4 people, so forth. Now, so what I mean by the right of survivorship benefit is, again, let's say it's just A and B. If A were to pass away, B would have the capability to do anything he or she wants. He can sell, he can refinance, and that would be perfectly fine. So really all that's needed is if A were to pass away, B would just have to have a death certificate for A and also what's called an affidavit of death to joint tenant recorded, and now B, him or her, owns the property altogether. So joint tenants used to be a really popular way for husband and wives, actually, until recently. Now, you might notice that there's a community property and community property of right or survivorship. Now, before I say anything, community property is usually just reserved for spouses to be used. So husband and wife, husband, husband, wife, wife, only reserved for husband and wife to be used. Now, let's start with community property of right of survivorship. Okay, community property of right of survivorship has that automatic right of survivorship just like joint tenant does. Okay, except it has a few better tax advantage when it relates to capital gains tax when you sell the property. So it has to do with what's called a step-up tax basis. I'm not going to go into the details of the step-up tax basis because that's mostly a CPA type of thing. But just know that if you're husband and wife and you want that automatic right of survivorship benefit, it's worth taking a look into holding title as community property or right of survivorship, because you do get that automatic right of survivorship benefit that most husband and wife seek, and you get a better tax advantage if you were to ever sell the property one day because of the step-up tax basis. Again, it's not a recommendation, but it's good to look into if if you're buying property as husband and wife. Now, the main difference between community property of right of survivorship and just regular community property is the automatic right of survivorship. So obviously, community property or right of survivorship has an automatic right of survivorship benefit, whereas regular community property has that unless otherwise devised by will. So unless otherwise devised by will. Both of them do, though, however, community property and community property of the right of survivorship has that step-up tax-based advantage. Again, really look that up. You can just do a Google search for step-up tax or a YouTube search, and you'll find a lot of information about that. So those are the most common ways of holding title. Again, that worksheet is really going to help you see the main differences between all these different ways. And depending on how you hold title is going to sort of determine what happens to your property if you were to pass away, what are the tax ramifications, and so forth. So really important, ask the right questions either to your real estate professional, to your estate planning attorney, to your CPA to make sure you get your property vested in the correct way when you purchase it. You can also change the way you hold title. You can also change your vesting after you purchase the property by basically recording another deed, changing the title, or changing the way you hold title to your property. So that concludes this new segment. Hopefully this information was helpful. Again, my name is Jerry Wu. I'm your host. Thank you so much for listening. I'll speak to you guys next time. Take care.
Remember, guys, the whole reason we do this show is for you, so we can provide an information outlet that maybe isn't out there already. We want to provide you what you want, and we can't do that without feedback. So if you like our show, if you don't like our show, whichever, make sure you go ahead and let us know on whatever platform you're on. If you don't let us know, we can't fix it. You know, there's a lot of people that work on this show every week to make sure that it's of quality and it gets out on time. So if you do appreciate it, please let us know. It's even just a little bit of positive feedback is a lot of encouragement on our end. Always remember, our website is a major content hub updated weekly with a ton of fresh new audio and video content. It's the best place to find whole new episodes and also segments of episodes on their own with video and exclusive subscription information as well. That's the best place to find transcriptions of the shows and guest information as well. That being said, you guys take care. Make sure you tuck your kids in. Kiss your parents. It's a crazy